What is going on, traders? I'm going to try to make this video quick, but before we start, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So a few videos back, and we can actually check. A few videos back, I was talking about a relief bounce. This particular video here and this video here. And what I was saying in these videos is that I think a relief bounce is going to come in the next day, and we're going to potentially. It wouldn't. I didn't expect it to happen all in one day, obviously, but that we will go to 19K or start heading towards 19K on the NASDAQ. And we got a bounce, and then we sold off like almost immediately towards the end of the day. And that's when I thought the relief bounce was pretty much over. And so the next day, I made another video saying market correction round two is in, and the NASDAQ went all the way from 18,500 to 17,800 the next day after I put that video out. But now it looks like, as far as those relief bounce videos go, that I might have been too early in anticipating that we could see those targets I was originally talking about in our last video. Now, again, granted, I'm not going to dismiss the fact that I was bearish in my last video, and I still stand by that. I'm still 10 toes down on us seeing more downside across the market. I don't think the downside is over. Until that changes, I will definitely let you guys know. But for now, I definitely think we're going to see more downside. But for the short term, at least between tomorrow and maybe even Monday, I do see us having more upside where we could potentially retest this daily supply and demand zone around 19K, 19,100. Do I see us heading higher than that? I don't. We don't really have any news tomorrow, so I don't see any reason for us to break much higher than this area. Now, if we zoom in, we can see on a daily time frame, as far as the NASDAQ goes, that there's a lot of turbulence here and there's major bears in this area. So in order for us to really break out of this area, we need immaculate news. And I just don't see any reason why we can go higher from this point on. So here I will be looking for confirmation for potential downside on the NASDAQ. And you guys already know my price target on the NASDAQ is still potentially, well, my first price target was 17,800, which we did hit, but I do think we're going to head towards that 17,200 target, maybe even lower. Okay. Now, it's important to note that we still have gaps to the downside on the NASDAQ that may need to get filled as well. And I was talking about a potential target all the way down to 16,000. Do I think that's going to happen sometime this month? I honestly don't. But I think we could be on our way there. All right. We could start trickling our way there. But we'll talk about that if that we ever get close to that target. But for now, heading into tomorrow, things are looking pretty bullish, and we could potentially see a move towards 19K. And it could potentially be a very fast, it could all happen in one day tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. As far as the ES goes, you guys are going to see this across the board pretty much. The same pattern, the same results, same correlation across the board. We're looking at the ES daily time frame. We bounced here, we bounced here, we bounced here, and then we finally broke through, and it looks like we're going to retest this trend. It's important to note, and I failed to mention this on the NASDAQ, that we have not retested this yet. And that's where I failed at, okay? That's where I failed or pretty much underestimated. I pretty much assumed that we were just going to, once we dropped, that we were just going to make the move very fast and then start to recover. But it looks like we want to retest this trend at around 5,500 on ES. And once again, like I showed you guys on the NASDAQ, there is a lot of turbulence here, a lot of turbulence. So I don't necessarily see us getting much higher than this area. Again, I imagine we would need like amazing news, maybe Jerome Powell, Fed, some rate cut. I don't know. Okay. But something crazy would need to happen. And right now, we just have too many bad events lingering in the air or bad news lingering in the air for me to believe that we're going to head much higher than this. Now, in my last video, I said I don't think unemployment claims is going to be higher than it was last time. And it looks like I was right about at least that part. And unemployment claims did come in lower. And that's usually how the market pretty much manipulates news. They put out some unrealistic number, and then that's very hard to beat. And then the next time that event happens, you're less likely to get that number. Okay, you're more likely to get lower than that original number. So it made sense that unemployment claims came much lower. I, it wasn't shocking to me. Hopefully, it wasn't shocking to anyone else. But I don't think this move is going to last. I think this move is going to be very fast to the upside, and then we're going to start seeing downside. Even now, I mean, we're heading up after hours, so I think a lot of this is going to play out at least tomorrow morning, and then we could potentially start seeing a sell off towards the evening. Now, I don't think the sell-off, if you're new to trading in general, I don't think the sell-off is just going to be like this right away. Obviously, it's going to play out over time, but we'll see. Okay. But I do think we have one more major drop before we start really seeing that buy to dip opportunity, which I'm very excited for, by the way. Next is Bitcoin. So in my last video, I was saying Bitcoin could make either a shoulder here or a shoulder up here. And originally I figured that Bitcoin would make a shoulder here, but it looks like it changed its mind and it looks like it wants to make a shoulder up here. Now, the head and shoulders is not yet confirmed. Obviously, this can all change. But right now, I'm looking at 62K. As you guys can see, we're retesting this trend again, just like I showed you guys on the ES and the NASDAQ. I mean, the NASDAQ just jumped up to 18,600 as we speak. So it's pretty crazy right now. The market is just pumping after hours. But Bitcoin right here at around 62,200 could potentially form the right shoulder, and we may see a sell off. That can all change. Obviously, this isn't yet confirmed. The neckline will be around 49,000, 50,000. I still stand on my target as far as Bitcoin heading much lower and heading towards the low 40K. Okay, so until that changes, I will definitely let you guys know. But so far, we've been spot on with our targets. I told you guys originally 60K, 57K, 52K, and we hit all those targets. So yeah, if you're new to the channel, I probably sound crazy, but for those of you who've been here for a while, you know, majority of my targets do hit. So I don't really make this stuff up, and I've even shown you guys in one video how I get my targets. It was actually like 2 videos ago. All right, so let's look at the triple Qs. So it's not, I mean, it's not a major difference across the board. You're going to be looking at the same thing. So I showed you guys this head and shoulders pattern here on the triple Qs. You got your shoulder here, your head here, your shoulder here. One misconception traders has is that head and shoulders patterns has to be upright. They can definitely be slanted. All right. So we broke this trend on the head and shoulders pattern. So right here, this huge trend. It's actually, let's go to the weekly time frame because that's what this is. So this weekly trend is where I think Triple Qs is going to go after it's done retesting 460. And remember in that relief bounce video, and that dip buying video, I was talking about triple Qs heading to 460, and it looks like that's what's going to happen. Where we see a move to 460, and we have yet to retest this weekly trend. We bounced here, we bounced here, we bounced here, we bounced here. And so if we're trying to gauge where the triple Qs is trying to go, I would assume is right here in this area where these guys are, which is a right around 415, 410 on the triple Qs. So after this move up to 460, I'm going to look for confirmation for potential downside, and then I'm going to possibly look for puts to jump into the triple Qs. But as you guys can see, we're pretty much in the middle of nowhere right here. There's not much going, I mean, there's something going on, but I would like to see a move either to test this area here or a move to test this area here. And judging from how the market is looking, even now after hours, I'm going to assume that we're going to retest this area here, fill this last gap, and then head further down. All right. So that's all I have for the triple Qs. Potential move to 460. After that, I think we're going to start seeing a sell off. I think this move to the upside is going to happen fast. I mean, NQ is pretty much proving me right now with how much is pumping after hours. So we'll see. SPY. SPY, same thing as we saw on the NQ, ES, triple Qs. I mean, it's the same across the board. It looks like the SPY wants to head towards, I would say 540 being the least. 550 is possible. Okay, it is possible, but it's really hard for me to see that happening. But it is possible. Okay, so just be careful if you are bearish. SPY can definitely head as high as 550. So a retest towards this gap fill at around 540, 542 range. Let's actually zoom in. We're looking at the daily time frame, by the way. This retest at 540, what do I tell you guys all the time? I tell you guys that gaps have very strong support and resistance, which is why it's pretty hard for me to see us move much higher beyond 540, 542 range. So once we fill this gap, there is potential for a drop to the downside, and my target still stands. I still think we're going to head towards 504. We originally, when I put out the target of 504, if you're new to the channel, like immediately the next day we dropped all the way to 510, 509. So I'm going to take that as a win. Can we head lower? Absolutely. but I'm gonna take that as a win. We like gap down all the way from like 532 to like 510, like immediately the next day after I put out that market correction video. So yeah, so I'm gonna take that as a win. Okay, so we bounced here, we bounced here, and then we consolidated here. We broke down, we gapped down twice, and it looks like we're just going to try to fill this last gap before we head further down. All right. So that's what I'm looking at as far as the SPY. Now, if you don't believe my 504 target, keep in mind that there is a gap that has yet to be filled all the way down here. It is between 506, 507, but are we really going to like, penalize me for being off 2 points? But still, 504 is my target. There's also well, no, okay, that gap's been filled. But so 506, 507 range is what I'm looking at. But lowest I'm looking at as far as a target on the SPY is 504. Let's look at some stocks. So let's look at coin. So coin after hours is at 198.97. I have the Discord in 200 calls. I alerted that really towards close, and we got in at around, I want to say 194, 193. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong if you're in the Discord. Coin looks good. It looks like it wants to head towards at least 202. Highest, if this pump keeps happening, highest I'm looking at is about 210 on coin. So that's really all I have for coin. If Bitcoin decides to, be done and finish this potential head and shoulders pattern, then at that point, I do think coin will start to pretty much plummet to the ends of the earth right along with Bitcoin. It's also important to note that Coin has a lot of gaps to the downside, and I do not, me personally, I don't think Coinbase deserves to be over 200. I think that's very overvalued in my opinion, but that's just me. I could be wrong. But regardless, Coin does have a lot of gaps to fill to the downside. Originally, I had a price target of 140, and that target still remains the same. Like immediately the next day, if you're in the Discord, you already remember we jumped into coin puts and we made like a bag, like a crazy bag, because the market like corrected like the next day. So yeah, so I'm looking for the same opportunity. Right now we're playing calls to the upside on coin, so I'm pretty happy with the results so far after hours. It looks like we could be in profit if things continue to hold. We'll see, but that's really all I have for coin. Just watch Bitcoin. As long as Bitcoin holds here and can potentially go higher, then we're pretty much in safe as far as coin go, and we're pretty much in profit. Let's look at Apple. So Apple is, like I said in the Discord, Apple's in a weird spot here. So, like I said, you guys are going to see a correlation with how everything looks together. So, if anything, I think Apple is just going to simply fill this gap and pretty much be done. Simple as that. I think if my bearish sentiment is still going to remain the same, I think the retest towards 215, between 215 to 20 on Apple is on the board. And then if the market does decide to drop, like I was originally saying, then Apple can start heading as low as about 195. Okay. I think 195 is a decent buying opportunity, but we'll talk about that if we ever get there. Okay. Keyword is if. All right. It's also important to note that inverted hammer patterns keep forming across the board. Someone tried to correct me and say these are not inverted hammer patterns, but if it looks like the pattern, assume that it is until it's proven otherwise. And right now, every inverted hammer pattern that I've pointed out on this channel has been bullish. We always gap up. I don't know what to tell you. All right, so majority of the time, these patterns hit. Do they last? No. They usually just gap up and then they pretty much just do nothing after that. They're usually the strongest within a downwards trend, so keep that in mind as well. But as far as Apple goes, gap fill towards 215, 220 range, and then after that, there's a lot of bears in this area, as you guys can see. You got a huge bearish candle here, you got a huge bearish wick here, you got way more red candles up here than green candles. So I will assume that there's a lot of bears in this area once we get this gap filled. Okay. I don't imagine us going much higher here unless Apple gets amazing news or the market gets amazing news. So just keep that in mind. Tesla. So Tesla is one I have on my radar right now. We zoom out on the daily time frame. And as you guys can see, we bounced here, and right now we're like under this trend here, and we're within the supply and demand zone as well. So I'm definitely looking for an opportunity to jump into puts for Tesla. I think Tesla can start heading towards at least 170. I'm looking for my opportunity will be a break and hold above below 194. 190, if anything, would be the more safe option, but 194 is a key level. After 194, I'm looking at a move to 190. If it breaks 190 and hold, then I'm definitely going to be looking at puts at that point, somewhere around 194, 190 to be clear. Okay. So that's what I'm looking at for Tesla. Now, if Tesla decides to follow the market, then obviously your next target will be to the upside is 207, and then highest potentially is about 215, 220 range. That's what I'm looking at for Tesla. Next stock is Meta. That's what I was looking for. There we go. So Meta. So I was talking about this in the Discord. Somebody was asking about it. Meta right now, 530. Between 525 and 530, it's tough for me to see us going higher than that because this is a monthly and there's a weekly supply, I mean, that demand zone in this area. So in order for me to like think Meta is going to go to the moon or go absolutely like parabolic to the upside, I would have to see it break above 530, and then 545, and then 550 psych level. There's a lot of bears in this area, a lot of turbulence in this area. So Meta is only getting dragged up because the market is dragging it up, if anything. But other than that, I think Meta is going to head towards 440. My target still stands, and I'm going to stick by it until proven otherwise. If we start breaking new highs or start at least breaking 550, then my thoughts on Meta, well, my thoughts across at that point, the market will be like full blown bullish, I would assume. So at that point, my whole sentiment will change. But right now, my targets still remain the same. My targets still remain on the table. Let's talk about Carvana. Carvana still looks bearish. As you guys can see, I mean, the market is pumping and pumping, and Carvana just does not want to move like that with the market. It moves up, of course, but it doesn't like pump with the market. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So I do think Carvana is waiting on the market to drop right along with it. And then once the market supports Carvana, it's going to like tank all the way to at least 110. So that's my target on Carvana. Now, the worst case scenario is that Carvana just pretty much fills this area up here all the way to like 145, give or take between 140, 145. That is the worst case scenario. But as far as I'm concerned, Carvana just still looks like it wants to drop. It just needs the market to support its drop. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Um, Next, I want to look at TLT. So TLT, we look at the weekly time frame. I have the Discord in 100 calls for next week, either next week or September 20th. But regardless, you have a inverse head and shoulders pattern here. You have your shoulder here, head here, shoulder here. You broke the neckline. I think if anything, TLT is probably just going to retest 94. That's the worst case scenario, and then we start to head higher. We got a TLT at around 96.3. Right now it's at like 95.4 after hours. So shouldn't even feel it, but regardless, TLT I think is going to head much higher. My first price target is 105, and then after that, I'm looking at a move to 110 on TLT. So, oh yeah, we are in 920 September calls because I got this off the weekly chart, so it makes sense that I have a dated contract and not a next week contract. Otherwise, that would be a bad idea. You definitely don't want to do if you're looking at the weekly time frame, you don't want to do a next week contract. You want to do like at least a month or two out. Okay, so or more. So that's what I have for TLT. TLT looks good. Um, I have nothing bad to say about TLT. This thing gaps all over the place, left and right, but I'm not too worried about it. Um, if anything, again, worst case scenario, it just feels 94 and then calls it a day and starts to head higher. So clear the head and shoulders is much clearer here. So I mean shoulder here, head here, shoulder here, and then boom, you just head higher from there. And then you have a higher low. Well, you have multiple higher lows. You have your low here, higher low here, higher low here, higher low here, and then it broke higher to the upside. Pretty much stopped up here, but at some point, definitely next week. If not next week, a few weeks out, this thing is going to head much, much higher. Okay. So that's my thoughts on TLT. And not only that, I'm using it as a protection play for our Discord. So yeah, or a hedge play, I would say. Next stock, what else? Oh, MU. So MU, it looks like it wants to just pretty much fill this gap all the way to at least 100, and then after that, I think it's pretty much cooked, and then it's going to head towards 75 if the market decides to tank. All right, so that's what I'm looking at for MU. Really don't have much else for it. There's at some point at time, if we do see 75, I'm definitely going to get some dated contracts on MU because I definitely want to play this area. I definitely want to play this. So I'm definitely going to be looking forward to calls. I'm going to be looking forward to calls across the board. If the market drops one more time, like I'm anticipating, the I'm definitely going to be looking at a lot of beautiful opportunities across the board. All right. So that's what I'm looking at for MU. Let's look at the VIX. So the VIX is going to, I think the VIX is going to simply retest here at around 2021 range. It's going to retest this channel. Maybe there is a like a fair value gap or a gap here. It's hard to tell, but maybe head as low as about 19, and then I think after that point, the VIX is going to head higher and start clearing out this area here. All right, at least the highest I'm looking at is about 50. I do think the VIX is going to start clearing this area out at some point. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But for now, heading into at least tomorrow, I think the VIX is going to start heading towards at least 21, maybe sometime next week. Between tomorrow and next week, we'll see a move towards 21, retest the top of this channel. Let's zoom out so you guys can see what I'm talking about as far as this channel go. But this is the daily time frame. We've been trading in here for a very, very long time. We finally, when we did break out, the VIX went absolutely berserk and went to 65. So I think it's a matter of time. If the market does, correct again, like I anticipate, the VIX is going to do it all over again and probably head much higher than that. So we'll see. Other than that, I believe I went over everything that I wanted to go over. That's all I have as far as everything. Let's take one more look at everything. NQ right now is kind of dropping. It was all the way at like 18,600. Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is currently rejecting this 62K area. So that's something to pay attention to. Um, if it continues to reject, then that will pretty much confirm that we might be forming a shoulder here. So something to pay attention to. We're not going to call it yet, but something, just keep an eye on this. A lot of turbulence in this area. Um, if we do break higher than at least I would say about 63K, then we get a liquid, pretty illiquid all the way to 65K, and then we'll see what happens from there. But that's really all I have, guys. Discord link is in the description below. If you want access to my signals, um, if you don't want to go through a Discord app and you want like text message alerts, that link is in the description below on our website. It'll pop up as soon as you get on the website. And even if you don't want to pay for text message alerts, by all means, you can subscribe to the website. You get a free ebook and you get a newsletter from myself every single Sunday. But other than that, that's all I have, guys. Really, thank you. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate the good comments. I appreciate the negative comments. It is what it is. Um, yeah, you can't please them all. But other than that, that's all I have, traders. Until the next video, have a good one.